Okay, so we're going to go ahead and show a puppy temperament evaluation of an 8-week-old PBGV puppy. The area that we're using is a place the puppy has never been. The tester is someone the puppy has never met, and she is separated from litter mates for this. They're upstairs, pretty much out of earshot. First thing we're looking at is we have somebody timing out 1 minute, and we're just letting her explore the pen a little bit. We've got some different surfaces for her to potentially walk on. A human that she might choose to greet, which she is doing. And you can see she kind of loosens up as soon as she greets the tester. This is really a nice social puppy here. So after Chrissy has said hi, she's going to just kind of stand up and ignore to try to encourage some exploration. And you can see this puppy's feeling a little braver now. She's checking out a little more of the area. Still not really walking on the new surfaces much, and kind of sticking more to the perimeter than the center of the pen. Okay, that was our 1 minute. So now we're going to have the tester walk down to one end of the pen. The puppy wasn't really engaged with her, so it didn't really follow. She's just going to stay put for about 15 seconds. We're still seeing some exploration here, which is nice. I think our timer might have forgotten the 15 seconds. I think we're here a little bit longer, which does happen sometimes. But we're starting to see some walking on some new surfaces. This is definitely longer than 15 seconds. Okay, so now we're going to do another 15 seconds. This time she has noticed that the human moved, but is starting to just really be more into checking out the area, which is fine. And she's stopping to pee, which happens sometimes when you're puppy testing. So we've got cleaning supplies nearby. We'll just deal with it and hold the puppy back so she doesn't track it all over the place. Okay, so now Chrissy's going to ask the puppy to check out each of the objects in the pen, just asking once or twice. We're getting a little more feet up on the surface, which is good. That's a balance disc, so it's a little bit unsteady under her feet, but we're still working with things that are nice and low. And this first time is just a human engaging with the puppy. There's no food or anything to try to tempt her in. What you'll notice with this puppy is she is willing to put feet on the surfaces, but it's mostly front feet. And that's kind of typical. You'll see puppies when they're testing the waters a little bit about environmental stuff. They're much braver usually if they can keep 1 or 2 feet on the ground. And I think this is probably not so much, and I'm afraid, as I'm just distracted and not engaging right now. Yeah, now this toy gets a little potentially scary to a puppy or a little more worrisome. So you can see she's kind of watching from a distance, but her tail's still up. She's approaching partway, not terrified, but just thinking, wow, that was weird. And as soon as he stops singing, you'll see she gets a little braver and goes and checks him out. So this is really a pretty nice reaction. You'd expect some reaction to some of the more startling things that we show the puppies, but she's recovering nicely. Now Chrissy's going to go back around to all the objects, but she has food in her hand. So you'll see in this case, the puppy is willing to stay closer when there's food. This can also sometimes show you if you have a puppy that really doesn't engage at all without food, but when you have food, all of a sudden they're your new best friend. That might be a dog that's really not particularly biddable or interested in working with a person for its own sake, but they're pretty food motivated. So as far as training or potentially being a performance dog, they may have be a dog that will be workable, but a lot of times it is easier if you have a dog that is willing to work with you just because you ask them to. And you'll still note those back feet are still sticking on the firm ground there and not on the uneven surface. And all we've got in here for props are the metal divider that comes when you buy a wire crate. They usually sell you that or send along that extra dividing piece. So it's something that's metal that's a little funny under their feet. You can also use baking sheets for the same purpose. We have a space blanket, and then the balance disc is just a human physical therapy disc. They're pretty inexpensive on Amazon. You can get the ones made for dogs, but they're a lot more expensive. Okay, now we're just moving the stuff, and it's just going to hang out in the pen there. Chrissy's going to go ahead and pick her up and hold her. You can't quite see this part. I'm sorry, we're out of camera range, but she's just cradling her on her back and her arms, just gently. A lot of times we'll see a puppy that's a little bit tense, a little bit squirmy. Sometimes you see puppies that really get pretty upset about this. We are timing this and we're just holding them for 15 seconds. And then the real thing we're looking for here is how quickly do you forgive the person who just restrained you? And in this case, really pretty quickly, she warmed back up and she said, okay, you're still my friend, even though you made me hold still for a minute. Okay, now we're picking her up again, and we're going to have one of our other helpers come in with a friendly dog. For this, if possible, I like to use a dog that's not the same breed, or at least in the case of breeds that come in different colors, not the same color as mom. But it has to be a dog that is completely trustworthy with puppies. Obviously, the point is not to have puppies have a bad experience or get injured, but it's just when they meet a strange dog who's not their mom, are they appropriate? Do they read the dog's social signals? So we're timing out 30 seconds. And we're just going to let her go ahead and say hi. Elf is more about the people than the puppy, but I do trust her completely to be appropriate. And little puppy Reba's just kind of hanging back and saying, well, I don't really know you. I think I'll be polite. She's getting closer, but she's being appropriate and approaching from the side, which is a nice thing to see. She's not quite sure she wants to make friends with a bigger dog, and that's fine. But that was really a pretty appropriate response. More concerning would be if you have a puppy that comes head on, grabs onto the adult dog, gets bitey, doesn't read social signals. A puppy that's a little bit worried about meeting a new adult dog is really a pretty typical reaction for this age. Okay, so now we're tossing a toy. In a perfect world on puppy testing, you'll get a retrieve and a pickup. That's actually a pretty good response for a PBGV puppy. They tend to not have as much inclination to retrieve or toy drive as you might see in a sporting dog or some of the working breeds. On a lot of puppy testing, especially for performance dogs, this test is presented as a deal breaker. Honestly, in PBGV puppies, if they notice the toy at all, you're doing okay. Typically, you'll have a chase because they have prey drive, but a lot of times you don't get a pickup. And that does not mean that they aren't ever going to like toys or want to work with people. Now we're going to ask her to play tug for about 15 seconds. This is a pretty desirable toy. I like to use a nice long toy for puppy testing. So if you do get a lot of prey drive or a lot of tug drive, they're not accidentally biting human hands. And that was kind of a typical, I have some prey drive, I'm interested in chasing, I'm not real mouthy or bitey, and that's kind of about what you see with a lot of PB puppies. Now Chrissy is going to engage with the puppy again with food for a couple of steps, give her a treat, and then just stand still and ignore her for 15 seconds. And what we're looking for here is, does the puppy immediately disengage? Does the puppy try to solicit attention? Are they patient enough to hang out for 15 seconds while the human is doing other things, or in this case, really doing nothing? And that was really a pretty nice response. She got a little bit upset, recovered pretty quickly, and basically stayed close by, waiting for the human to come back to pay attention to her. Now we're going to pop open an umbrella and just go ahead and set it down for 15 seconds to let her check it out. She was a little bit blocked out of camera range, but she really didn't startle much, and you can see she approached to check out the umbrella pretty quickly. No real worries here. And then we will go ahead and do this test again. When we're doing things that involve any kind of a startle reaction, it's usually nice to do them twice so that you can get an idea if there was a startle or a response. Are they better the second time, which would indicate a dog that's fairly resilient and that might get a little bit worried but gets over things, or are they worse? Worse would be a little bit more concerning. That might be a dog that's going to be a little bit less confident, have a little harder time adjusting to new environments. At any point during testing, if a puppy seems to be traumatized or overly upset, you can absolutely discontinue. The purpose of this is to evaluate. It is definitely not to frighten or traumatize puppies. So a small response is normal. Extreme reactions, there's times where you just have to say, we're not going to test this puppy any further today. Okay, there we had a noise. That's just a can with some pennies in it. She startled ever so slightly and immediately went to check it out. That was a really nice response from a nice, confident puppy. And then Chrissy went and shook the can a little bit more. She wandered off, not really in fear, more just like, oh yeah, that other stuff is here. I think I'll go check it out. That was more distracted than afraid, though. You can tell that because the tail never dropped, the ears are up. She still is a happy puppy. That pretty much brings us to the end of the test, but you can see this was a puppy who was still enjoying herself, still happy to engage with us. This was really a pretty nice looking puppy test, a puppy that I would really have no concerns about. She could potentially do well in a pet home, do well in a performance home, probably could do well in most homes that might be looking for a puppy of this age. There really weren't any red flags that I saw on this one, but this gives you an idea of ways that you can evaluate some of the qualities in baby puppies. I don't recommend doing this test much younger than about 8 weeks, 7.5 maybe at the earliest. Much earlier than that, you won't see this level of engagement, and you probably won't really get an accurate reading on some of the things that you're trying to see.